Hey guys, tonight we're drifting across the endless Pacific, where the ocean stretches like a dark, rippling blanket under a dome of glittering stars. You're perched in a double-hulled canoe, the wood creaking softly, salt spray kissing your face as you squint at the constellations. Polynesian Navigators, the rock stars of ancient wayfinding, use these stars like a GPS, crossing thousands of miles without a compass or a map. One wrong move, and you're probably not surviving this lost in a watery nowhere with only fish for company. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment with your location and local time. I'm curious where you're chilling tonight. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're out here, bobbing on the waves, and the stars are your only guide. The Polynesians, yeah, who settled islands from Hawaii to New Zealand, didn't just stumble across the Pacific by luck. They were master navigators, reading the sky like a book. Around 1000 BCE, they began their epic migrations, using oral traditions and celestial know-how to find tiny specks of land in a vast ocean. That's the mainstream fact their voyages, spanning over 2,000 years, connected a triangle of islands bigger than most continents. Imagine memorizing a map that's only visible at night, with no paper to jot it down. That's what you're learning tonight. The stars aren't just dots of light, they're a living chart. You tilt your head back, the canoe swaying, and spot the bright arc of Hokulea, a star we call Arcturus in the west. To Polynesians, it's a beacon over Hawaii, rising at dusk in the right season. You learn to track its path, noting how it climbs and dips. Each star has a job. Some mark directions, others signal seasons or point to islands. You're starting to grasp the star compass, a mental map that splits the horizon into 32 houses, each tied to a star's rising or setting point. It's not written down, your brain's the notebook. Now, here's a quirky tidbit: some navigators claimed they could feel the stars pull. Like a sixth sense. Not quite Jedi stuff, but they'd lie on the canoe's deck, eyes closed, sensing the boat's tilt against the waves and the stars' positions above. Sounds wild. Right, historians still argue whether this was intuition or just years of practice making it seem mystical. Either way, you're trying it now. Sprawled on the deck, the cool wood against your back, waves lapping. You're not sure if you're channeling cosmic vibes or just getting seasick. The canoe rocks gently, and you notice the air's tang, sharp with salt and something earthy, like distant land. You're learning to pair stars with other clues: winds, clouds, even the flight of birds. A navigator named Mau Pielug, who revived this art in the 1970s, once said the ocean speaks if you listen. You're listening hard, but it's overwhelming. The sky's a maze of twinkling points, and you're supposed to know which ones lead to, say, Tahiti versus Tonga. You joke to yourself, if I get lost, I'll just follow that star shaped like a pizza slice. Not helpful, but it keeps you calm. You shift on the canoe, your legs cramped, and imagine the Polynesians doing this for weeks. No GPS, no snacks, just dried fish and a coconut shell of water. You're starting with the basics: finding north. The Southern Cross, a compact constellation. Point south if you draw a line through its long axis. Flip that mental line, and you've got north roughly. You practice spotting it, low on the horizon, its stars sharp against the inky sky. It's not just about one star, you need a whole cast of them, each rising at different times. You're building a rhythm, like a song you hum to stay on track. The waves slap the hull, and you wonder how anyone kept this straight without writing. Polynesian navigators used chants, passed down like family recipes to lock in star paths. You try making up your own. Hokulea rises. North we go. Dodge the clouds. Avoid the glow. It's terrible. And you chuckle, imagining a master navigator rolling their eyes, yeah, but it sticks in your head. And that's the point. Memory is everything out here. You're not just looking at stars, you're weaving them into your mind, a tapestry of light and direction. You're getting the hang of it. Sort of. The canoe drifts, and you spot Sirius, blazing bright. It's a marker for some islands, but you're not sure which yet. You're learning to think like a navigator patient, observant, a little stubborn. The ocean's huge, and you're tiny. But the stars make you feel connected, like you're part of something ancient. You yawn, the night air cool on your skin, and realize this is just the start. There's a whole system to master, and you're barely scratching the surface. You lean back, the canoe's motion lulling you. The stars seem closer now, whispering secrets of voyages long past. You're not just floating, you're following a path carved by people who trusted the sky to carry them home. It's humbling and a little scary. You joke, if I mess this up, I'm starring in Castaway the prequel. But deep down, you're hooked. The stars are talking, and you're starting to listen. The night stretches on, and you practice naming stars. Your voice soft against the waves. You're not a navigator yet, but you're closer than you were. The canoe sways, the sky spins slowly, and you feel the weight of history in every twinkle. You're out here, learning what it means to find your way by starlight, one constellation at a time. You're still out here, bobbing on the Pacific, the canoe's hull creaking under you as the stars burn bright above. The night's deep now, and you're starting to see the sky not just as a scatter of lights, but as a map, a living, breathing guide. Your eyes trace the horizon, where the star compass you began to grasp earlier is coming into focus. It's like a mental clock, ticking with the rising and setting of stars, and you're learning to read it, one notch at a time. The water's cool spray flicks your face, keeping you alert, though your eyelids are heavy. You're diving deeper into this ancient art, and it's starting to feel less like a puzzle and more like a dance. The star compass, or kahoe, is your lifeline. You picture it as a circle around your canoe. The horizon split into 32 equal parts, each house named for a star or constellation that rises or sets there. It's not a physical tool, no dials or needles, just a framework burned into your memory. You learn that Polynesians, around 300 CE, perfected this system, navigating from the Marquesas to Hawaii, a 2,000-mile trip, with nothing but their wits in the sky. That's the mainstream fact: their voyages linked islands across the Pacific, creating a network of trade and culture, all guided by this celestial map. You focus on one house, the one where Hokulea Arcturus rises. It's your North Star, sort of, though you're in the tropics, so the actual North Star is barely a blip. You imagine pointing the canoe's bow toward that house, feeling the boat tilt as waves nudge you along. Each house has a partner opposite it, so if Hokulea rises in the northeast, another star sets in the southwest, keeping you balanced. You try naming a few Sirius in the east, and Antares in the south. It's like learning a new language, and you're stumbling over the words. Here's a quirky tidbit: some navigators use their bodies to measure the compass. They'd stretch out their arms, fingers splayed, and count hand widths across the horizon to mark a star's position. You try it, lying flat on the deck, arms wide, the wood grain pressing into your back. Your fingers frame a patch of sky, and you feel a bit ridiculous, like you're playing a cosmic game of Twister. But it works. Your hands become a ruler, the stars your reference points. Historians still argue whether this body-based method was universal or just a quirky habit of certain islands. Either way, you're hooked, giggling softly as you wiggle your fingers at the Milky Way. The canoe rocks, and you notice the waves' rhythm, syncing with your breathing. You're learning to pair the star compass with other clues. If a star rises too high, it's useless for direction, so you wait for the next one. You watch the horizon, where clouds might hide a star but also hint at land, their shapes lit by reflected moonlight. You're starting to think like a navigator. Everything's a sign. Nothing's random. You joke to yourself, if I misread this, I'm not just lost, I'm the star of a very wet tragedy. It's a weak pun, but it keeps you grounded. You shift, your legs stiff, and try memorizing the houses. You chant softly Hokulea, northeast, Sirius, east, Canopus, south. It's clunky, but you're building a rhythm. The Polynesians had chants for entire voyages, weaving stars, winds, and islands into poetry. You're nowhere near that level, but you feel a spark of pride when you name 3 houses without hesitating. The sky's spinning slowly, and you're starting to predict which star will pop up next. It's like solving a riddle that's been true for millennia. The air's cooler now, carrying a faint whiff of seaweed. You wonder how navigators stayed sharp on long trips. No coffee, no energy drinks, just willpower and maybe a splash of seawater to the face. You're learning to trust the compass, to let it guide you when the ocean feels endless. You spot the Pleiades, a tight cluster, and recall they mark planting seasons on some islands. The stars aren't just for navigation, they're a calendar, a storybook, a way of life. You're starting to see why Polynesians revered them, why they sang to the sky before setting sail. You lean back. The canoes sway, lulling you. The star compass is more than directions, it's a mindset. You're not fighting the ocean, you're part of it, moving with its pulse. You try another body measurement, holding your hand up to gauge a star's height. It's awkward, and you nearly poke your eye out, which makes you chuckle. Note to self, don't navigate and multitask. But you're getting it, slowly. The houses are clearer, the stars less chaotic. You're building a mental map, one you can carry anywhere. The night hums around you, waves whispering secrets. You're not just following stars, you're following the Polynesians' courage, their genius. You think of Mau Piailug, the modern navigator who sailed the Hokulea canoe in 1976, proving the old ways still worked. His star compass was the same as yours, unchanged by centuries. You feel a connection, like you're sharing the same sky. The canoe drifts, and you practice naming houses again, your voice a soft murmur. You're not perfect, but you're learning. And that's enough for now. You yawn, the stars blurring slightly. The compass is starting to feel like home, a circle of light you can trust that you're out here, a speck in the Pacific. But the stars make you feel bigger, tied to something eternal. You're ready for the next step, whatever it is, as long as the sky's above you. You're still gliding across the Pacific, the canoe's gentle sway syncing with your heartbeat as the stars keep their silent watch. The star compass is starting to feel familiar, like a song you're humming half right. But now you're tuning into something else, the ocean itself. The waves aren't just water, they're a language, whispering directions if you know how to listen. You're sprawled on the deck, one hand trailing in the cool, frothy spray, feeling the pulse of the swells. The night air's sharp with salt, and you're learning to read the sea like the Polynesians did, letting it guide you as much as the stars. The ocean's rhythms are your new obsession. You notice how the swell's long, rolling waves move in patterns, shaped by distant winds or islands. Polynesian navigators around 500 CE mastered this art, crossing from Samoa to the Cook Islands by feeling the sea's motion. That's the mainstream fact. They used wave patterns as a backup when clouds hid the stars. Steering by the way the canoe rocked. You're trying it now, closing your eyes, letting the boat's tilt tell you if you're drifting east or veering south. It's like dancing blindfolded, trusting your body to know the steps. You focus on the swells, how they lift the canoe's bow, then drop it gently. There's a dominant swell, coming from the southeast, steady as a metronome. You learn to sense its direction by lying low, your back pressed to the deck, feeling the boat's sway through your spine. Then there's a quirkier tidbit: some navigators could detect reflected swells, faint waves bouncing off distant islands. It's like the ocean's version of echolocation. You try to feel it, but all you get is a vague slosh. You mutter, "If I'm reading this wrong, I'm going to discover Atlantis the hard way." The thought makes you smirk, easing the tension in your shoulders. Historians still argue whether reflected swells were a real technique or just a sailor's tall tale. Some say it's physics, waves do bounce off land, but others think it was more about intuition, years of experience masquerading as magic. You're not sure, but you keep trying, shifting your weight to catch every nudge of the sea. The canoe creaks, and you notice smaller waves, choppy ones, cutting across the main swell. Those are wind-driven, and you're learning to ignore them, focusing only on the deep, steady pulse. It's overwhelming, like trying to hear a whisper in a storm. You sit up, wiping salt from your face, and glance at the stars for reassurance. The Southern Cross is still there, low and sharp, anchoring your mental compass. You're blending clues now, stars above, waves below. The Polynesians called this wayfinding, a word that feels heavier the more you do it. You're not just navigating, you're weaving the world together, making sense of chaos. You try to feel the swells again, rocking with the canoe. It's subtle, but you start to notice a rhythm, like a heartbeat you can trust. You're getting it. Maybe. The air's cooler now, carrying a faint tang of something alive, fish. Maybe, or seaweed. You're learning to read the ocean's mood, how a sudden chop means wind's picking up, or a smooth glide signals calm. You think of Mau Piailug, the navigator you heard about earlier, who could see islands through the waves. You're nowhere near that, but you're starting to respect the sea, not fear it. You joke. If the ocean's talking, it's probably saying, "Chill, rookie." It's a weak jab, but it keeps you loose. You stretch. Your muscles stiff from lying still, and try another trick reading the canoe's balance. If the bow dips too deep, you're off course, fighting the swell. You adjust your weight, mimicking a navigator's instinct, and the boat feels steadier. It's not just the waves, it's the currents, too. You learn there's a warm current flowing west, tugging the canoe like a gentle hand. Polynesians knew these currents, naming them like roads. You're starting to see the ocean as a network, not a void. The stars twinkle, and you spot Sirius, blazing in its house on the compass. You're linking it to the swells, using both to guess your heading. It's slow work, and your brain's foggy from focus. You imagine a Polynesian crew chanting to stay sharp, their voices rising over the waves. You try a chant of your own, swells roll southeast. Stars hold true. Keep the bow straight, see it through, it's awful. And you laugh, the sound swallowed by the night. But it helps, locking the rhythm in your head. You lean back, the deck cool against your skin. The ocean's alive and you're part of it, not just a passenger. You're learning to trust the swells, to let them guide you when the stars play hide and seek. It's humbling, knowing people did this for centuries, with no safety net. You think of the Hokulea voyage in 1976, how it proved the old ways still worked. Those navigators felt the same waves, saw the same stars. You're connected, across time, by this restless sea. The canoe drifts, and you practice feeling the swells again, your body swaying with the boat. You're not a master, but you're better than before. The ocean's teaching you. Slowly, and you're listening. The stars above, the waves below, they're starting to feel like friends, not mysteries. You yawn, the night's hum wrapping around you, and settle in for whatever comes next. You're still out here, rocking gently on the Pacific, the canoe's hull humming with the ocean's pulse. The stars and swells are starting to feel like old friends, but now you're diving into something deeper. The navigator's mind. You're sprawled on the deck, the wood worn smooth under your back, staring at a sky so crammed with stars it's dizzying. To navigate like a Polynesian, you need to hold this entire celestial map in your head. No notebooks, no apps, just raw memory. The salt air stings your nose, and you're starting to grasp the mental marathon this takes. It's like memorizing a novel, except one wrong word could strand you forever. Your brain's the key, and you're training it to store star paths and island locations like a living database. Around 800 CE, Polynesian navigators were sailing from Tonga to Rapa Nui, a 3,000-mile trek, relying on mental maps passed down through generations. That's the mainstream fact. Their oral traditions preserved precise routes across the Pacific, connecting islands like dots in a cosmic sketch. You're trying to mimic that now, whispering the names of stars Hokulea, Sirius, Canopus, and tying them to directions. It's exhausting, like cramming for a test you can't flunk. You focus on one path, the route to Tahiti. You picture Hokulea rising in the northeast, guiding you for hours, then handing off to Antares in the south as it sets. You have to know when each star peaks, when it fades, and which one takes its place. It's not just stars, you're memorizing islands, too. Tahiti's got steep peaks, fringed reefs, a certain smell of wet earth. You try locking that in, chanting softly Hokulea leads. Tahiti waits. Green hills rise, coral gates. It's clunky, but it sticks. Here's a quirky tidbit: some navigators use star lines. Mental sequences of stars rising in order, like a playlist for a voyage. If you followed the line, you'd hit your island eventually. You try building one, linking the Pleiades to Sirius to Canopus. It's like stringing beads, but your brain keeps dropping them. You mutter, if I forget this, I'm not just lost, I'm auditioning for Solo Sailor the Lost Years. The joke lands flat in the dark, but it keeps you awake. Historians still argue whether star lines were a universal technique or a regional quirk, maybe unique to Micronesian navigators who shared Polynesian roots. Some say they're too complex for oral memory. Others point to chants that prove it. You don't care about the debate, you're just trying not to blank on Sirius's position. You lie back, the canoe swaying, and repeat your star line, feeling the words settle. The ocean's rhythm helps, each wave a beat to your chant. You're starting to get why Polynesians sang their knowledge. It's not just practical, it's soothing. You shift, your neck stiff, and try another memory trick tying stars to stories. You imagine Hokulea as a warrior, blazing across the sky to guide you home. It's cheesy, but it works. Your brain latches onto the image. You're learning to think like a navigator, turning abstract dots into vivid tales. The Polynesians did this, weaving myths into their maps, making the sky a saga. You're nowhere near their level, but you're starting to see the stars as more than lights, they're characters, each with a role. The air's damp now, carrying a whiff of fish and salt. You're practicing another route, this time to Samoa. You picture the Southern Cross pointing south, then Sirius steering you west. You add details: Samoa's beaches, white as bone, and the sound of drums. It's overwhelming, and you wonder how anyone held this much in their head. You joke, my brain's full time to upgrade to Navigator Pro. It's a weak quip, but it cuts the frustration. You're learning patience, which isn't your strong suit. You sit up, rubbing your eyes, and try visualizing the entire star compass from earlier. You name the houses northeast, east, southeast, tying each to a star and an island. It's like juggling, and you're dropping half the balls. But you keep at it, whispering your chant, letting the canoe's sway ground you. You think of Mao Piailug, the modern navigator who taught this art to a new generation. He memorized thousands of star paths, reciting them like poetry. You're aiming for maybe 10, and it's humbling. The stars twinkle, and you spot the Pleiades, low and tight. You're starting to predict their rise, which feels like a small victory. You're not just memorizing, you're understanding, feeling the sky's rhythm. The ocean's vast, but your mind's expanding to meet it, holding more than you thought possible. You lean back, the deck cool, and let the stars blur. You're training your memory, one chant at a time, and it's starting to feel like magic. You yawn, the night's hum wrapping you up. The navigator's mind is a fortress, and you're just laying the first stones. You're connected to those ancient voyagers, their voices echoing in your chants. The canoe drifts, and you whisper your star line again. Softer now. You're not a master, but you're closer, and the stars are rooting for you. You're still drifting on the Pacific. The canoe's steady rock a quiet comfort as the stars hold court above. Your mind's buzzing with star paths and island names, but now you're turning your attention to the vessel beneath you, the double-hulled canoe that's your home on this endless sea. The wood's smooth under your palms, worn by waves and hands long gone, and you're marveling at how this simple craft, guided by stars, carried Polynesians across oceans. The air's thick with salt, and you're learning to appreciate the genius of this boat, built to dance with the sky and sea. You're helping craft a canoe, or at least imagining it, your hands tracing the curves of its twin hulls. These double-hulled designs, used by Polynesians as early as 1000 BCE, were engineering marvels, stable enough to carry families and livestock across 2,000 miles from Fiji to Hawaii. That's the mainstream fact. The catamaran-like structure, with two hulls lashed together, gave Polynesians the edge to colonize the Pacific, balancing speed and stability under starlit skies. You're picturing the process. Sweat on your brow as you shape logs with stone adzes, the rhythm of chopping syncing with the waves. The hulls are long, maybe 60 feet. Carved from koa or breadfruit trees, they're grained dark and tight. You learn the hulls aren't identical ones, slightly shorter, curved to cut the waves, while the other steadies the load. They're joined by cross beams, lashed with coconut fiber so tight it sings when you pluck it. You try tying a knot, your fingers fumbling, and mutter, "If this fails, I'm not sailing, I'm swimming." The joke's weak, but it keeps you focused. You're starting to see the canoe as a partner. Its design tuned to the stars you've been memorizing. Here's a quirky tidbit: some canoes had star notches carved into the rails, tiny grooves aligned with key constellations. Navigators would line their eyes with these marks to check a star's position, like a primitive sextant. You run your fingers along the rail, feeling for notches. But it's smooth. Historians still argue whether these notches were common or just a flourish on certain islands. Maybe in the Marquesas. You're not sure, but you like the idea. Imagining a notch for Hokulea, guiding you north as you squint into the night. You shift, kneeling on the deck, and notice the platform between the hulls, where you'd store taro, dried fish, and water in gourds. The canoe's not just a boat, it's a floating village, with a woven sail catching the wind and a steering paddle as long as you are tall. You try lifting an imaginary paddle, your arms aching just thinking about it. The sail's triangular, angled to track the stars, letting you adjust course without losing sight of Sirius or Canopus. You're learning to feel the canoe's balance, how it leans into swells you sensed earlier. Each movement a conversation with the sea. The night's cool, a faint breeze carrying the scent of wet wood. You're picturing the canoe's construction back on land, a community effort. Elders chant, kids haul ropes, and you're there, sanding a hull until it gleams. The Polynesians built with purpose. Every curve designed to follow the star compass you're still mastering. You recall Maupiailug, who sailed a replica canoe, the Hokulea, in 1976. That craft was built the old way. No nails, just lashings and faith. You're starting to respect the hands that shaped this boat, their knowledge as deep as the ocean. You lean back, the deck creaking, and try visualizing the canoe's path. You imagine pointing the bow toward Hokulea's house, the sail taut, the hulls slicing through waves. It's not just about the stars. The canoe's design makes their guidance possible. Its stability letting you focus on the sky. You joke. If this boat sinks, I'm blaming the guy who tied these knots. Oh, wait, that's me. The quip's silly, but it cuts the weight of responsibility. You're learning to trust the craft, to see it as an extension of your will. You stretch, your back stiff, and notice the canoe's gentle sway, perfectly matched to the swells. You're starting to understand its rhythm, how the hulls glide when you steer right, or drag when you're off. The Polynesians knew this, building boats that sang with the sea. You try chanting a builder's song, something about strong hulls and steady stars, but it's awful, and you laugh. the sound soft against the waves. It helps, though, locking the canoe's shape in your mind. The stars twinkle, and you spot the Southern Cross. Low and sharp, you're linking it to the canoe's course, imagining how the hulls would feel under a full sail. The boat's alive, responding to your every move, and you're starting to feel like a navigator, not just a passenger. You're out here, building a bond with this craft, its wood and lashings as vital as the stars above. You yawn, the night's hum wrapping you tight. The canoe's a masterpiece, and you're a part of its story, carrying the legacy of those who built and sailed it. The waves lap, the stars shine, and you settle in, ready for whatever comes next. You're still out here, cradled by the Pacific's gentle sway, the double-hulled canoe steady beneath you as the stars pulse overhead. The craft feels like an extension of yourself now, its wood warm from your touch. But your focus shifts to something bigger. The sacred side of wayfinding. You're not just navigating, you're joining a ritual, honoring the gods who guide your voyage. The night air carries a faint sweetness, like frangipani from a distant shore, and you're learning to feel the spiritual weight of this journey. The way Polynesians did when they sailed under these same stars. You're preparing for a ritual, kneeling on the canoe's platform, the deck rough under your knees. Around 200 CE, Polynesian navigators began voyages with ceremonies, invoking gods like Tain or Tangaroa to bless their paths. That's the mainstream fact. These rituals weren't just superstition, they unified crews, grounding them in shared belief before facing the ocean's unknowns. You're picturing it now, your hands clutching a woven mat, ready to offer a prayer to the sky. The stars seem brighter, as if listening, and you feel a shiver, like you're part of something ancient. You learn the ritual steps, guided by an elder's voice in your mind. You sprinkle seawater over the bow, a gift to Tangaroa, god of the sea, asking for calm waves. You chant softly, words you don't fully understand but feel in your bones. Tone, light the stars, guide our way. The canoe rocks, and you scatter petals imaginary, but vivid into the water, their scent mingling with the salt. It's humbling, and you joke. If I mess up this prayer, I'm not just lost, I'm on Tangaroa's naughty list. The quip's light, but it keeps you steady. Here's a quirky tidbit: some rituals involved star offerings, where navigators tossed shells or feathers toward a key constellation, like Hokulea to feed its light. You try it, flicking a pretend shell skyward, feeling silly but oddly connected. Historians still argue whether these offerings were symbolic or believed to literally strengthen the stars. Some say it was about focus, sharpening the navigator's mind. Others think it was pure faith. You're not sure, but the act feels right. Your fingers tingling as you mimic the toss. The stars winking back. You shift, the platform creaking, and notice the crew around you imagined, but real in spirit. They're chanting too, their voices low, blending with the waves' lap. The ritual binds you, making the canoe feel like a sacred space. Not just a boat. You're learning to see the stars as divine, each one a god's eye watching over you. The Polynesians believed this. Their voyages as much about faith as skill. You're starting to get it, feeling the sky's pull, like a thread tying you to something eternal. The air's cooler now, carrying a whisper of rain. You're picturing a full ceremony back on land. Before the voyage began, torches flicker, drums throb, and you're there, offering a fish to the gods, its scales glinting like the stars. The elder paints your face with ash, marking you as a wayfinder. It's intense, and you wonder how you'd hold up under those expectant eyes. You mutter, "If I trip during the ritual, I'm blaming the sacred sand." The joke's weak, but it cuts the awe, grounding you, grounding. You lean back, the deck cool, and try chanting again, letting the words flow. The ritual's not just about gods, it's about trust. In the stars, the canoe, yourself. You're learning to surrender to the journey, to let the sky lead. You think of Mau Piailug, the modern navigator who revived these ways. He honored the old rituals, even in the 1970s, praying before sailing the Hokulea. You're connected to him, to all who chanted under this sky, their voices echoing in your shaky prayer. The stars twinkle, and you spot Sirius, blazing in its house. You're linking it to the ritual, imagining it as Tangaroa's gift, guiding you west. The canoe's sway feels purposeful now, each rock a nod from the gods. You're not just a sailor, you're a pilgrim, carrying prayers across the sea. It's heavy, but it fuels you, making the stars seem closer, their light a promise. You try another offering, tossing an imaginary feather, and smile, feeling less silly this time. You yawn. The night's hum soft around you. The rituals left you calm, like you've sealed a pact with the sky. You're part of this sacred art, not just learning it, but living it. The waves whisper, the stars shine, and you settle in, ready for the next step, your heart full of quiet reverence. You're still gliding through the Pacific. The canoe's gentle sway a steady pulse beneath you, the stars above weaving their timeless map. The sacred ritual's warmth lingers in your chest, like a candle flickering against the night's cool breath. But now you're turning to something new, the stories behind the stars. You're sprawled on the deck, the wood smooth under your palms, listening to the waves as if they're whispering tales of Polynesian ancestors. The air carries a faint tang of seaweed, and you're diving into myths that tie the constellations to the people who sailed these seas, making the sky feel like a family album. You're hearing a story, one passed down through generations, about how the stars came to be. Around 1000 CE, Polynesian oral traditions linked constellations to their gods and heroes, guiding navigators from the Society Islands to Aotearoa. That's the mainstream fact. These myths weren't just bedtime stories, they encoded navigation cues, embedding star paths and tales of adventure. You're picturing an elder's voice, low and rhythmic, telling you about Maui, the trickster demigod who lassoed the sun and hung stars like lanterns to light the way. You lean forward, the canoe rocking, eager to soak it in. The story goes that Maui shaped the Pleiades, a tight cluster you spot low in the sky to mark the planting season and guide voyages east. You imagine him, all cocky grin and boundless energy, tossing those stars into place, each one a beacon for sailors like you. The myth says if you follow the Pleiades at dawn, you'll find land, maybe Samoa, maybe further. You try chanting the story's keyline, Maui's stars rise, east we sail, land awaits, hearts won't fail. It's clumsy, but it sticks, tying the constellation to your mental map. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some myths claim the Milky Way was a celestial canoe, carrying ancestors' souls across the sky. You tilt your head, tracing its hazy glow and grin, imagining a cosmic boat race. It's wild, but it makes the stars feel alive, like they're cheering you on. Historians still argue whether the Milky Way myth was a navigation tool or pure poetry. Some say it helped navigators track the sky's tilt. Others think it was about hope, not direction. You're not sure, but you like picturing your canoe mirrored above, its hull gleaming with starlight. You shift, your legs cramped, and try weaving the Maui story into your star compass. You link the Pleiades to Sirius, then Canopus, building a path in your mind. The myth helps. It's easier to remember a hero's tale than a list of coordinates. You're learning how Polynesians use stories as memory aids, each constellation a chapter in their epic. You joke, if I forget Maui's stars, I'm not just lost, I'm grounded by a demigod. The quip's silly, but it keeps you loose, the night's hum softening your edges. The air's damp now, carrying a whiff of fish and salt. You're picturing a village fire, where these stories were told. Kids wide-eyed as elders spun tales of gods and voyages. You're there, cross-legged on a mat. The Pleiades overhead, learning that Hokulea isn't just a star, but a promise, tied to Hawaii's shores. The myths make the sky intimate, not overwhelming. You're starting to see why Polynesians trusted these stories. They're not just lore, they're maps, etched in light and memory. You lean back, the deck cool, and try another story. This one about Tane, god of forests, who scattered stars to guide his lost brother. It's less about navigation, more about family, but it grounds you, reminding you of the crew you'll sail with soon. You think of Mau Piailug, who knew these myths and sailed by them in 1976, his Hokulea canoe, a nod to the ancestors. You're connected, your voice echoing theirs as you whisper Maui's tale. The words blending with the waves, the stars twinkle, and you spot the Southern Cross, low and sharp. You're tying it to a myth about a great fish, its tail pointing south, guiding you to new lands. The story's vivid, and you're starting to predict the cross's rise, feeling like a storyteller yourself. The canoe sways and you chant softly, letting the myths settle in your bones. You're not just learning stars, you're learning their soul, the why behind the where. You yawn, the night's rhythm wrapping you tight. The stories make the sky feel like home, each constellation a friend with a name and a purpose. You're part of this legacy, carrying tales as old as the sea. The waves lap, the stars shine, and you settle in, ready for the next lesson, your heart humming with Maui's light. You're still out here, cradled by the Pacific's endless rhythm, the canoe's hulls slicing through the dark water as the stars burn bright above. The myths of Maui and Tane are still swirling in your head, making the sky feel like a storybook. But now you're shifting gears. You're studying under a master navigator, a grizzled elder whose eyes seem to hold the whole night sky. The deck's cool under your bare feet, the air sharp with salt and a hint of distant rain, and you're memorizing stars by moonlight, your brain stretching to keep up. This is where the real work begins, and you're feeling the weight of it, like a test you didn't know you signed up for. You're crouched beside the elder, his voice low and steady, pointing out constellations as they rise. Around 1200 CE, Polynesian navigators trained apprentices through oral lessons, passing down star paths from the Tuamotus to Rapa Nui. That's the mainstream fact. This mentorship system ensured wayfinding survived. With masters like Tupaya guiding voyages across 4,000 miles of open sea, you're trying to absorb it all, your eyes darting from Hokulea to Sirius, the elder's finger tracing arcs you're supposed to memorize. The canoe rocks, and you grip the rail, determined not to look like a rookie. The elder's teaching you to see the star compass, that mental circle you've been building. But now with precision, he names each house northeast, east, southeast, and ties it to a star's exact rising point. You repeat after him, your voice shaky Hokulea. Northeast, Canopus, south. He corrects you when you fumble Antares' position, his tone patient but firm. You're learning to track time, too, noting how long a star stays in its house before another takes over. It's like learning a song, except the melody's the sky, and you're terrified of hitting a wrong note. Here's a quirky tidbit some masters used riddles to teach, hiding star paths in wordplay. The elder smirks and asks, "What climbs east but sleeps west, you guess Sirius?" And he nods. Barely. You try it yourself, muttering, "What sparkles south but fades north, it's Canopus." And you feel a spark of pride. Historians still argue whether these riddles were widespread or just a teaching quirk in places like the Marquesas. Some say they sharpened memory, others think they were just for fun. You're not sure, but you like the challenge, even if your riddles sound like bad poetry. You shift, your knees aching from crouching, and notice the moonlight glinting off the waves. The elder's teaching you to pair stars with the swells you felt earlier, using both to confirm your course. You lie flat, feeling the canoe's tilt, and try naming the houses again. It's grueling, and you joke, "If I forget this, I'm not just lost, I'm flunking navigator school." The quip's weak, but it keeps you from panicking. You're starting to see the sky as a clock, each star a tick marking your journey. The air's cooler now, carrying a faint whiff of fish. You're picturing the elder's life, years spent training on canoes like this. His memory a vault of routes and stars. He's like Maupiailug, who you keep thinking of. The modern master who sailed the Hakulea in 1976. You're trying to channel that focus, repeating your star list under your breath. The elder points to the Pleiades, low and tight, and tells you it's a seasonal marker, not just a guide. You nod, scribbling it mentally, your head buzzing with new connections. You lean back, the deck creaking, and try a new trick visualizing the entire compass while closing your eyes. You name the houses, picturing each star's arc, and only mess up twice its progress, and the elder grunts, which you take as high praise. You're learning to trust your memory, to let the stars settle in your mind like seeds. The Polynesians did this, their apprentices becoming masters through nights like this, their chants echoing over the waves. The stars twinkle, and you spot the Southern Cross, sharp and low. You're linking it to the elder's lesson, tying it to a path south. The canoe sways, and you practice a riddle. What points south but hides by dawn? The elder doesn't smile, but you feel clever anyway. You're starting to think like a navigator, not just parroting, but understanding. It's slow, and your brain's foggy, but you're getting there, one star at a time. You yawn, the nights hum soft around you. The elder's voice is a steady anchor, guiding you through the sky's maze. You're part of this ancient chain, student to master, carrying the stars forward. The waves lap, the moonlight fades, and you settle in, ready for the next lesson, your mind alight with celestial sparks. You're still out here, swaying on the Pacific's vast cradle, the canoe's hulls humming beneath you as the stars keep their steady glow. The elder's lessons are sinking in, your mind a jumble of star names and riddles, but now you're tuning into something subtler, the wind and clouds. You're perched on the deck, the wood cool under your thighs, feeling the breeze tug at your hair. The air's alive with hints of rain and salt, and you're learning to read the weather like a Polynesian navigator, using it to predict what's coming on your star-guided journey. The night feels like a puzzle, and you're piecing it together, one gust at a time. You're watching the wind, how it shifts across your face, warm one moment, sharp the next. Around 700 CE, Polynesian navigators were crossing from the Cook Islands to Aotearoa, using wind patterns to adjust their sails and stay on course. That's the mainstream fact. They read breezes and clouds as backup when stars were dim, steering by the feel of the air and the shape of the sky. You're trying it now, holding a damp finger to the breeze, guessing it's coming from the southeast. The canoe sways and you adjust the imaginary sail, picturing it catching the wind to chase Hokulea's path. The wind's not just a push, it's a story. You learn to sense its direction by how it brushes your cheeks. Steady from one side meaning a trade wind, or swirling chaos hinting at a storm. You're also watching clouds, those puffy mounds lit by moonlight. A flat, layered cloud might mean calm. A towering one screams trouble. You spot a low cloud, its edge glowing, and guess it's reflecting an island's lagoon, a trick navigators use to find land. You mutter, "If I read this wrong, I'm not sailing, I'm storm chasing." The joke's shaky, but it keeps your nerves in check. Here's a quirky tidbit: some navigators claimed they could taste the wind, sensing land by a faint, earthy flavor in the breeze. You stick out your tongue, feeling ridiculous, and catch only salt and damp. It's a stretch, but you imagine a whiff of green, like wet ferns. Historians still argue whether this was real or just heightened senses from years at sea. Some say it's possible winds carry pollen or dust. Others call it folklore. You're not sure, but you keep tasting the air, half hoping for a jungle-flavored hint, grinning at your own absurdity. You shift, your back stiff, and focus on the clouds again. You're learning to spot land clouds, those that hover over islands, often greener at their base from reflected forests. You scan the horizon, squinting at a smudge that might be a cloud or just your tired eyes. The elder's voice echoes in your head, urging you to pair the wind with the swells you felt earlier. A steady southeast breeze should match the dominant swell, keeping you on course. You're starting to weave it all together. Stars, waves, wind, clouds, each clue a thread in the navigator's tapestry. The air's cooler now, carrying a faint, fishy tang. You're picturing a navigator's life. Weeks reading these signs, no weather app. Just instinct. You think of Maupae Lug, who sailed the Hokulea in 1976 predicting storms by cloud shapes. You're trying to channel that, noting how the breeze feels stronger. Maybe a squall brewing. You joke, if a storm hits, I'm not a navigator, I'm a very wet poet. The quip's light, but it masks your respect for the skill you're barely grasping. You lean back, the deck creaking, and try a new trick closing your eyes to feel the winds shift. It's subtle, but you sense it veering east, tugging the canoe slightly. You adjust your mental course, picturing Sirius in its house, the wind aligning with its arc. The Polynesians did this, their bodies like compasses, reading the world's pulse. You're nowhere near that, but you're starting to trust your senses, letting the breeze guide you when the stars play coy. The stars twinkle, and you spot the Pleiades. Low and tight, you're linking it to the wind, imagining it as a marker for a trade wind season. The canoe rocks, and you practice reading a cloud's shape, guessing it's benign. You're learning to predict, not just react, feeling the sky and sea as partners. It's slow, and your brain's foggy, but you're getting it, one puff of wind at a time. You yawn, the night's hum wrapping you softly. The wind and clouds are teachers, just like the elder, and you're their eager student. You're part of this ancient art, reading the world's signs under the same stars. The waves lap, the breeze whispers, and you settle in, ready for the next clue. Your senses sharp with wonder. You're still out here, rocking on the Pacific's restless waves. The canoe's twin hulls steady beneath you as the stars cast their faint glow. The wind's whispers and cloud shapes are starting to make sense, blending with the star compass in your mind. But now you're honing in on a new skill spotting land. You're sitting cross-legged on the deck, the wood damp under your thighs, scanning the horizon for subtle signs birds, water hues, or a break in the swells that scream island to a Polynesian navigator. The air's thick with salt and a faint, earthy whiff, and you're learning to trust your senses, letting the stars and sea guide you to a speck of land in this endless blue. You're searching for clues, your eyes straining against the moonlight's soft haze. Around 900 CE, Polynesian navigators were finding islands like Rarotonga by reading natural signs, from seabirds to wave patterns, alongside their star paths. That's the mainstream fact. They didn't just sail blindly. They used a web of cues, stars, birds, and ocean shifts to pinpoint land across thousands of miles. You're trying it now, squinting at a dark smudge on the horizon, wondering if it's a cloud or the shadow of hills. The canoe sways and you lean forward, heart quickening at the thought of solid ground. You learn to watch for birds first. Frigate birds, with their puffed red throats, fly out from land at dawn, returning by dusk. You spot one, its wings slicing the sky, heading west. That's a hint lands that way. Maybe a day's sail. You also notice the water's color, how it shifts from deep indigo to a greener tint, a sign of shallower reefs. The swells you felt earlier are softer here, broken by an unseen shore. You're piecing it together, feeling like a detective chasing starlit clues. You mutter, "If I miss this island, I'm not a navigator, I'm a professional drifter." The joke's weak, but it keeps you sharp. Here's a quirky tidbit: some navigators swore they could smell land, catching a faint whiff of soil or flowers on the breeze. You sniff the air, half expecting a tropical perfume, but get only fish and salt. It's a stretch, but you imagine a hint of mango or wet earth, grinning at the absurdity. Historians still argue whether this land smell was real or just heightened imagination after weeks at sea. Some say winds carry organic scents. Others call it wishful thinking. You're not sure, but you keep sniffing, hoping for a clue. Your nose wrinkled in mock seriousness. You shift, your back stiff from sitting, and focus on the birds again. A tern wheels overhead, its cry sharp, another sign of land within 100 miles. You're learning to pair these clues with the stars. Hokulea still guides you west, aligning with the bird's path. The elder's voice echoes, urging you to trust the signs, to see the ocean as a map. You're starting to get it, noticing how the clouds pile up differently here, maybe reflecting an island's heat. It's overwhelming, but you're weaving stars, birds, and waves into a single story, each clue a breadcrumb to shore. The air's cooler now, carrying a faint tang of seaweed. You're picturing the moment you'll see land, a green ridge breaking the horizon, the crew cheering. You think of Mau Piailug, who found Hawaii in 1976 by reading these same signs, his Hokulea canoe gliding toward Oahu under starlight. You're trying to channel that precision, noting how the water's greener, the birds more frequent. You joke. If I spot land, I'm not just a navigator, I'm the MVP of this canoe. The quip's light, but it masks your growing confidence. You lean back, the deck creaking, and try a new trick closing your eyes to feel the swells shift. They're gentler, broken by something solid. Maybe a reef. You open your eyes, scanning for a cloud with a greenish base. A classic land sign? The Polynesians mastered this. Their sense is sharp from years of practice. You're nowhere near that, but you're starting to trust your gut, letting the birds and waves guide you when the stars alone aren't enough. The stars twinkle, and you spot Sirius blazing in its house. You're linking it to the bird's flight, imagining an island west, waiting under its light. The canoe rocks, and you practice reading the water's hue. Guessing it's shallower, you're learning to anticipate, to feel land before you see it. It's slow, and your eyes are heavy, but you're getting there, one turn at a time. You yawn, the nights hum soft around you. The signs of land are like whispers, and you're learning their language, joining the navigators who found home under these stars. The waves lap, the birds cry, and you settle in, ready for the next hint. Your sense is alive with the promise of shore. You're still out here, carried by the Pacific's restless waves, the canoe's twin hulls gliding beneath you as the stars hold their quiet vigil. The signs of land birds, green-tinted water. Softer swells are teasing your senses, but now you're taking the plunge, you're setting sail, trusting the stars to lead you across this vast ocean. You're at the helm, hands gripping the steering paddle, its wood worn smooth by countless voyages. The air's thick with salt and a faint promise of earth, and you're feeling the thrill and terror of launching into the unknown. Your star compass the only map you've got. You're pushing off from an imagined shore, the canoe loaded with taro, dried fish, and gourds of water. Around 300 CE, Polynesian navigators embarked on epic voyages, like the 2,500-mile trek from the Marquesas to Hawaii, guided solely by celestial cues. That's the mainstream fact these journeys, often carrying entire families, settled the Pacific's farthest reaches, all thanks to the stars you're following now. You point the bow toward Hokulea's rising house, the sail snapping taut, and feel the canoe surge, your heart pounding like a drum. You're steering by the star compass, naming the houses northeast, east, southeast as Hokulea climbs, then hands off to Sirius. The elder's lessons echo, urging you to keep the bow aligned with each star's arc. You feel the swells, those rhythmic pulses you learned earlier, nudging the canoe west. It's exhilarating, but you're hyper-aware of every creak, every shift. You mutter, if I veer off, I'm not exploring. I'm auditioning for Lost at Sea. The joke's shaky, but it keeps your nerves from fraying. Here's a quirky tidbit: some navigators tied a cord to their toes, linking them to the steering paddle. so they could feel the canoe's course while lying down. Eyes on the stars. You try picturing it, your toes twitching, and laugh, imagining yourself tangled in rope. Historians still argue whether this was a real technique or a myth from oral tales, maybe unique to Tongan sailors. Some say it's practical, your feet sense the paddle's tug. Others call it exaggeration. You're not sure, but you like the image. Your toes dancing with the stars. You shift, your arms aching from the paddle, and check the sail. It's angled to catch the southeast trade wind you read earlier, pushing you towards Sirius's house. You're weaving clues, stars, swells, wind into a single rhythm, the canoe responding like a living thing. The moonlight glints off the waves, and you spot a frigate bird, its red throat flashing, confirming lands out there, somewhere west. You're learning to trust the journey, to let the sky and sea carry you. But it's daunting, the ocean stretching like a dark forever. The air's cooler now, carrying a whiff of fish and damp rope. You're picturing the crew behind you, their faces lit by starlight, chanting to keep time. The Polynesians sailed like this, whole communities crossing oceans, their faith in the stars as strong as their lashings. You think of Mau Piailug, who led the Hakulea in 1976, proving this art still worked. You're trying to channel his calm, keeping Hakulea in sight, adjusting the paddle when the swells shift. You joke, if I make it, I'm a navigator, if not, I'm a very tired swimmer. The quip's light, but it masks your determination. You lean back, the deck creaking, and try a new trick, closing your eyes to feel the canoe's balance. The swells are steady, the wind constant, and you sense the boat's on course. You open your eyes, checking Sirius, and feel a spark of pride you're holding steady. The Polynesians mastered this, their bodies tuned to the sea's pulse. You're nowhere near that, but you're starting to trust your instincts, letting the stars guide when doubt creeps in. The stars twinkle, and you spot the Pleiades, low and tight, a reminder of Maui's myth. You're linking it to your course, imagining an island waiting under its light. The canoe glides, and you practice chanting Hakulea leads. West we go. Stars above. Land below. It's rough, but it helps. Locking the rhythm in your mind. You're learning to sail, not just steer. Feeling the canoe's joy and motion. It's slow, and your arms are heavy, but you're moving, one star at a time. You yawn. The night's hum soft around you. The voyage is real now. The star's your only certainty. You're part of this ancient dance, following the same paths as those who sailed before. The waves lap, the sail hums, and you settle in, ready for whatever lies ahead, your heart alight with starfire. You're deep in the Pacific now. The canoe's twin hulls carving through the inky waves as you steer by the star's faint glow. The thrill of setting sail still hums in your veins, but the ocean's testing you. A storm's brewing. Clouds swallowing the stars you've come to trust, and you're clinging to the steering paddle. Its wood slick with spray. The air's heavy, charged with rain and salt, and you're relying on your star knowledge to keep the canoe on course through this squall. The night feels alive, wild, and you're learning what it means to navigate when the sky plays hard to get. The storm hits fast, wind howling, waves slapping the hulls like angry hands. Around 500 CE, Polynesian navigators faced storms like this on voyages from Samoa to Tahiti, using their memorized star paths to hold steady when clouds obscured the sky. That's the mainstream fact, their ability to navigate through weather, recalling celestial cues from memory, kept them alive across 2,000-mile treks. You're trying it now, picturing Hokulea's arc in your mind, even though it's hidden behind a wall of gray. The canoe lurches, and you grip the paddle, heart thumping. You're recalling the star compass, naming the houses northeast, east, southeast, though the sky's a blur. You know Hokulea should be setting west, so you steer by feel, trusting the swells you learned earlier to confirm your heading. The waves are chaotic, but you sense the dominant southeast swell beneath the chop, guiding you like a faint pulse. You're also using the wind, that southeast gust you read before, now fiercer, stinging your face. It's overwhelming, and you mutter, "If I survive this, I'm not a navigator. I'm a storm whisperer." The joke's shaky, but it keeps you grounded. Here's a quirky tidbit: some navigators claim they could hear the stars through a storm, sensing their positions by the ocean's rhythm or a gut feeling. You try it, closing your eyes, listening to the waves roar, but all you hear is your own pulse. It's a stretch, but you imagine a faint hum, like Hokulea calling you west. Historians still argue whether this was intuition or myth, maybe a Micronesian trick adopted by Polynesians. Some say it's just experience. Others call it spiritual. You're not sure, but you keep listening, half hoping for a cosmic whisper, grinning at your own desperation. You shift, your arms burning from wrestling the paddle, and check the sail. It's reefed tight, catching just enough wind to keep you moving. The elder's voice echoes, urging you to trust your memory when the stars hide. You're picturing Sirius's house, west-southwest, and adjust the paddle, feeling the canoe steady slightly. The storm's a beast, but you're weaving clues, swells, wind, memory into a lifeline. A gap in the clouds flashes canopus, low and sharp, and you seize it, realigning your course before the sky closes again. The air's wet now, rain pelting your skin, carrying a tang of ozone. You're picturing a Polynesian crew, soaked but chanting, their voices defiant against the storm. You think of Mau Piailug, who sailed the Hokulea through squalls in 1976, his calm a beacon. You're trying to channel that, whispering your star chant Hokulea sets. West we hold, swells stay true, stars unfold. It's rough, but it helps. Locking your focus. You joke, if I beat this storm, I'm not just sailing, I'm starring in canoe versus nature. The quip's light, but it masks your grit. You lean into the paddle, the deck slick under your feet, and try a new trick, feeling the canoe's tilt to gauge your course. The swells are steadier now, the storm easing, and you sense you're still westbound. The Polynesians mastered this, their bodies tuned to the sea's chaos. You're nowhere near that, but you're starting to trust your instincts, letting memory guide when the sky betrays you. A faint star peeks through Sirius, blazing, and you whoop softly, course confirmed. The stars flicker, clouds parting, and you spot the Pleiades, a faint cluster. You're linking it to your heading, imagining an island waiting west. The canoe steadies, and you practice chanting again, your voice hoarse but firm. You're learning to endure, to find the stars in your mind when the sky's gone dark. It's grueling, and your body's heavy, but you're pushing through, one swell at a time. You yawn, the night's roar softening to a hum. The storm's fading, and you're still here. Star knowledge intact. You're part of this ancient fight, battling the sea with the same tools as those before you. The waves calm, the stars return, and you settle in, ready for the next challenge, your spirit forged in the squall's fire. You're still slicing through the Pacific. The canoe's twin hulls steady now as the storm's last growls fade into the night. The stars are back, twinkling like they're proud of you for weathering the squall, and you're catching your breath, hands still tight on the steering paddle. The air's damp, laced with salt and a faint fishy tang. But your focus is shifting. You're turning to the crew around you imagined, but vivid, sharing stories under the starlit canopy, their voices weaving bonds as strong as the lashings holding this canoe together. The deck's slick under your feet, and you're learning how these connections, forged in the dark, keep a voyage alive. You're sitting in a circle on the platform. The crew's faces lit by moonlight, their laughter cutting through the waves' soft lap. Around 800 CE, Polynesian voyages, like those from Tonga to Hawaii, relied on crew unity, with storytelling strengthening trust across weeks at sea. That's the mainstream fact. These shared tales, often about ancestors or gods, weren't just entertainment, they built a family, ensuring everyone pulled together when the ocean turned mean. You're joining in now, passing a gourd of water, listening as someone spins a yarn about Maui stealing fire. Your chuckle blending with the group's. You're sharing a story of your own, a clumsy retelling of the Pleiades myth you learned earlier, how Maui hung those stars to guide sailors east. The crew ribs you for your shaky delivery, but their smiles are warm, and you feel included, part of this floating tribe. You're learning to mimic their rhythm, letting the canoe's sway guide your words, tying the tail to Hokulea's arc overhead. It's intimate, and you mutter, "If I bore them, I'm not a navigator, I'm the crew's nap inducer." The joke's weak, but it earns a laugh, easing your nerves. Here's a quirky tidbit: some crews used star songs, melodies that doubled as navigation aids, with lyrics hinting at star paths or islands. You try humming one, making it up. Hokulea rises, west we glide, Sirius follows, lands our prize. It's awful, and the crew groans. But you grin, imagining a real song passed down centuries ago. Historians still argue whether these songs were common or just a Samoan quirk, maybe lost in oral tradition. Some say they encoded routes, others think they were morale boosters. You're not sure, but you keep humming, the tune catching in your head. You shift, your legs cramped, and pass the gourd to a crewmate, their calloused hand brushing yours. You're noticing the group's rhythm, how one story sparks another, how a quiet sailor suddenly shares a tale of a great fish guiding their grandfather's canoe. The stars overhead, Sirius blazing, feel like part of the conversation, tying your stories to the sky. You're learning to listen, not just talk, letting the crew's voices ground you after the storm's chaos. The Polynesians leaned on this, their crews as tight as family, each story a knot in their shared strength. The air's cooler now, carrying a whiff of wet rope. You're picturing a long voyage, weeks of these nights, stories piling up like driftwood. You think of Mau Piailug, who sailed the Hokulea in 1976, his crew bonded by tales under the same stars. You're trying to channel that unity, sharing another story, this time about the Southern Cross as a fish's tale. The crew nods, and you feel a spark of pride you're contributing, not just learning. You joke, "If my stories flop, I'm not bonding, I'm the crew's unintentional lullaby." The quip's light, but it hides your growing ease. You lean back, the deck creaking, and try a new trick, weaving the swell's rhythm into your story, syncing your words to the canoe's sway. It's subtle, but the crew notices, their eyes bright. You're learning to feel the group's pulse, to let their laughter and silences guide you like the stars. The Polynesians mastered this, their crew's a single mind, rowing, chanting, surviving together. You're nowhere near that, but you're starting to trust these bonds, letting them anchor you when the sea feels too big. The stars twinkle, and you spot Canopus, low and sharp. You're linking it to a crewmate's tale, imagining an island south, waiting under its light. The canoe glides, and you practice humming your star song again. Softer now. You're learning to belong, to find strength in shared words under the sky. It's slow and your throat's dry, but you're weaving a web of trust, one story at a time. You yawn, the night's hum wrapping you gently. The crew's voices are your compass now, as vital as the stars. You're part of this ancient circle, tied to those who sailed and laughed before. The waves lap, the stories flow, and you settle in. Ready for the next tale? Your heart warm with connection. You're still out here, adrift on the Pacific's endless waves, the canoe's twin hulls rocking you gently as the stars burn steady overhead. The crew's stories still echo in your ears, their laughter a warm thread tying you together. But now the mood shifts. You've lost your way. The stars are there, but doubt creeps in, clouding your mental compass. You're gripping the steering paddle, its wood damp under your palms, the air thick with salt and a faint whiff of ozone. You're learning to rediscover your path through celestial cues, fighting the panic of being a speck in this vast, dark sea. The night feels heavier, the horizon a blur of black on black. Around 1000 CE, Polynesian navigators, sailing from Tahiti to Rapa Nui, sometimes drifted off course, relying on their memorized star paths to correct their heading. That's the mainstream fact: their ability to recalibrate, using stars and ocean signs, saved countless voyages across 3,000 miles of open water. You're trying it now, your eyes darting to where Hokulea should be, but clouds smear the sky, and you're second-guessing. The canoe sways, and you take a breath, forcing calm. You're retracing your mental star compass, naming the houses northeast, east, southeast, though your confidence wobbles. You know Sirius should be rising west. But without seeing it, you're leaning on memory, picturing its arc from the elders' lessons. The swells, those steady pulses you felt before, are your anchor, rolling southeast, suggesting you've drifted north. You adjust the paddle, feeling the canoe resist, and mutter, "If I'm lost, I'm not a navigator, I'm a very confused tourist." The joke's weak, but it cuts the fear gnawing at your gut. Here's a quirky tidbit: some navigators used backup stars, lesser-known constellations, to confirm their path when main ones were hidden. You try recalling one. A faint cluster the elder called the net, meant to guide when Hokulea's obscured. You scan for it, spotting a dim pattern through a cloud gap, and feel a spark of hope. Historians still argue whether backup stars were a standard trick or a regional habit, maybe from the Tuamotus. Some say they were essential, others think navigators relied more on waves. You're not sure, but you cling to the net, steering toward its faint light. You shift, your arms aching, and check the wind. It's steadier now, southeast like before. Brushing your face, you're weaving clues: swells, wind, memory trying to rebuild your course. The crew's quiet. They're trusting you, a heavy gift. You're picturing Mau Piailug, who righted the Hokulea in 1976 after a storm. His calm a lifeline? You're trying to channel that. Whispering your star chant, Sirius rises. West we turn, swells hold true. Stars return? It's shaky, but it helps, grounding you in the rhythm you've learned. The air's damp, carrying a faint, fishy tang. You're picturing the moment you'll find your way, the stars snapping back into focus, the crew cheering. You lean into the paddle, feeling the canoe respond, and try a new trick, lying flat to sense the swells shift. They're smoother, aligning with your guest course. The Polynesians did this, their bodies' compasses when doubt struck. You're nowhere near that, but you're starting to trust your gut, letting memory guide when the sky's unclear. A cloud parts, and Sirius blazes, right where you hoped. You exhale, course confirmed, and the crew murmurs approval. You're learning to recover, to find the stars in your mind when the sea tests you. You joke, "If I pull this off, I'm not just sailing, I'm the comeback kid of canoes." The quip's light, but it masks your relief. You're back on track. The star compass clear again, each house a beacon. The stars twinkle, and you spot the Pleiades, low and tight. You're linking it to your path, imagining an island west, waiting under its light. The canoe glides, and you practice chanting again, your voice steadier. You're learning to trust yourself, to navigate through doubt with the tools you've honed. It's slow, and your body's heavy, but you're moving forward, one star at a time. You yawn. The nights hum soft around you. The fear of being lost is fading, replaced by the star's quiet promise. You're part of this ancient art, finding your way like those who sailed before. The waves lap, the sky clears, and you settle in, ready for the next step. Your heart steady with rediscovered light. You're still out here, gliding across the Pacific's vast embrace. The canoe's twin hulls steady beneath you as the stars reclaim their brilliance after your brush with being lost. The relief of finding your way still hums in your chest, but now a new thrill builds. Land is close. You're standing at the bow, the wood slick under your bare feet, scanning the horizon where a faint green ridge breaks the endless blue. The air's alive with the scent of wet earth and blooming flowers, and you're celebrating with starlit dances and feasts, the joy of landfall washing over you like a warm wave. You spot the island, its peaks sharp against the dawn's glow, frigate birds wheeling overhead. Around 600 CE, Polynesian navigators reached islands like Rarotonga, their arrival marked by communal celebrations that honored the stars and sea. That's the mainstream fact. These landfalls, often after weeks of sailing, sparked rituals of gratitude, uniting crews and islanders in feasts that echoed across the Pacific. You're joining in now, stepping onto the beach, the sand cool and soft, your crew cheering as you tie the canoe to a palm. The celebration begins, torches flickering, drums throbbing in a rhythm that matches the swells you've come to know. You're dancing, your feet kicking up sand, mimicking the star's arcs, Hokulea's rise. Sirius's sweep. The islanders offer roasted taro and fish, their laughter blending with the surf's roar. You take a bite, the smoky flavor grounding you, and grin, feeling like you've earned this. You mutter, "If I trip during this dance, I'm not a navigator, I'm the comic relief." The joke's light, but it keeps you loose amid the joy. Here's a quirky tidbit: some islands held star feasts, where foods were arranged in patterns mimicking constellations. Like the Pleiades, to honor the voyage, you help lay out a spread, placing breadfruit in a tight cluster, chuckling at the absurdity of edible astronomy. Historians still argue whether these feasts were widespread or a quirk of places like the Society Islands. Some say they reinforced navigation lessons. Others think they were purely festive. You're not sure, but you love the idea. Your fingers sticky with fruit as you shape a starry tribute. You shift, sand between your toes, and join a chant, your voice blending with the crew's. It's a song of thanks to Tangaroa, the sea god, and Tane, who lit the stars. You're linking it to the myths you heard, Maui's stars guiding you here. The dance swirls, and you're spinning under the Southern Cross, its light sharp above the palms. You're learning to celebrate, not just survive, letting the island's pulse merge with your own. The Polynesians lived for these moments, their voyages crowned by shared joy, each landfall a victory over the sea. The air is warm, carrying a whiff of smoke and salt. You're picturing the crew's faces, weathered but bright, as they share stories of the storm you weathered together. You think of Mau Pialug, who landed the Hokulea in 1976, greeted by Hawaiian crowds chanting under starlight. You're trying to channel that pride, joining a dance that traces the star compass's houses. You joke, "If I nail this dance, I'm not just a sailor, I'm the star of the beach party." The quip is silly, but it hides your awe at being part of this. You lean against a palm, the bark rough, and try a new move mimicking a frigate bird's flight in the dance. Your arms wide, the crowd cheers, and you feel connected. Not just to the crew, but to the island itself. The Polynesians wove these rituals into their lives, making every landfall a sacred act. You're nowhere near their grace, but you're starting to feel the rhythm. Letting the drums and stars carry you, the stars twinkle, and you spot Canopus, low over the sea. You're linking it to the feast, imagining it blessing the island's bounty. The canoe rests, its hulls kissed by waves, and you practice chanting again, your voice soft but sure. You're learning to honor the journey, to see land as a gift from the stars. It's overwhelming, and your body's tired. But you're alive with the island's heartbeat, one dance at a time. You yawn, the night's hum blending with the drums. The celebration's a bridge tying you to those who landed here centuries ago. You're part of their story, dancing under the same sky. The waves whisper, the torches flicker, and you settle in, ready for what's next, your heart full of starlit joy. You're still basking in the glow of the island's celebration, the rhythm of drums and starlit dances fading into the Pacific's gentle hum. The canoe rests on the shore, its hulls kissed by waves, but you're turning inward now, reflecting on the knowledge you've gained. You're sitting on the beach, sand cool beneath you, passing on the secrets of wayfinding to a younger islander, ensuring the star's wisdom survives. The air carries a sweet whiff of frangipani, and you're feeling the weight of legacy. Your voice steady as you teach under the same sky that guided you here. You're kneeling beside a young apprentice with their eyes wide, pointing out Hokulea as it rises in the northeast. Around 1100 CE, Polynesian navigators, like those in the Cook Islands, trained successors to preserve star paths, ensuring voyages to places like Aotearoa continued. That's the mainstream fact this oral tradition, passed from master to student, kept wayfinding alive for centuries, a chain of knowledge stronger than any storm. You're part of that chain now, guiding the apprentice through the star compass, naming its 32 houses. Your words slow to match their eager nods. You're teaching the basics. Just as the elder taught you, you trace the horizon with a stick in the sand, sketching the houses northeast, east, southeast, and tie each to a star's arc. The apprentice repeats, stumbling over canopus, and you smile, remembering your own fumbles. You're sharing tricks like feeling swells or reading birds, weaving in the Maui myth to make it stick. It's humbling, and you mutter, if I mess this up, I'm not a teacher, I'm a very confusing storyteller. The joke's soft, but it keeps the mood light, the apprentice giggling. Here's a quirky tidbit: some navigators use star sticks, small carvings notched to mark key constellations, as teaching aids. You hand the apprentice an imaginary stick, showing them how to align it with Sirius. It's a simple prop, but it sparks their focus. Historians still argue whether star sticks were common or a rare tool, maybe unique to the Marquesas. Some say they were memory aids, others think they were ceremonial. You're not sure, but you like the idea. Picturing the apprentice clutching their stick, eyes on the sky, you shift, sand sticking to your knees, and point to the Pleiades, low and tight. You're teaching them to link it to seasonal voyages, just as you learned. The apprentice chants, their voice shaky but earnest, and you feel a swell of pride. You're passing on more than directions, you're passing on a worldview, where stars, sea, and stories are one. The Polynesians lived this. Their knowledge of flame kept burning through nights like this. You're starting to grasp the responsibility. Your words shaping the next generation's path. The air's cooler now, carrying a faint tang of salt. You're picturing the elder who taught you, his gruff patience, and Maupiai Lug, who trained modern navigators in the 1970s. You're trying to channel their clarity, showing the apprentice how to feel the canoe's tilt, to trust the swells when clouds hide the stars. You joke. If you get lost, don't blame me, I'm just the guy with the stick. The quip's light, but it hides your hope that they'll carry this forward. Keeping the stars alive, you lean back, the sand soft, and try a new teaching trick, a riddle. Like the elders. What rises east but guards the west, you ask? The apprentice guesses Sirius, and you nod, impressed. You're learning to teach, not just recite, feeling the weight of each word. The Polynesians mastered this, their apprentices becoming masters, their chants echoing across oceans. You're nowhere near that, but you're starting to see the apprentices spark, their mind opening to the sky. The stars twinkle, and you spot the Southern Cross, sharp and low. You're linking it to a path south, teaching the apprentice its role. The canoe looms nearby, its hull's a reminder of the voyages to come. You practice a chant together, your voices blending Hokulea leads. West we sail. Stars hold true. Never fail. It's rough, but it binds you. Teacher and student under the same sky. You're learning to pass on trust, to give the stars to someone new. You yawn. The night's hum wrapping you gently. The apprentice's questions slow, their eyelids heavy. But you're alive with purpose. Carrying the navigator's legacy. You're part of this ancient chain, linking past to future. The waves whisper, the stars shine, and you settle in, ready for the next lesson. Your heart full of quiet duty. You're still on the island, the Pacific's soft waves lapping at the shore where your canoe rests, its hulls kissed by moonlight. The apprentice's eager questions linger in your mind, their star stick clutched tight as they drifted to sleep. But now you're looking forward to a world where Polynesian navigation is reborn. You're sitting on a rocky outcrop, the stone cool beneath you, watching the stars, Hokulea, Sirius, Canopus, while pondering how these ancient ways blend with modern tools. The air carries a faint whiff of smoke from a distant village fire, and you're marveling at how the old stars still guide, even in a GPS age. You're imagining a revival, a new generation sailing by starlight but with modern twists. Around the 1970s, the Polynesian Voyaging Society launched the Hokulea, a replica canoe that sailed from Hawaii to Tahiti using only traditional methods, sparking a cultural renaissance. That's the mainstream fact. This revival, led by navigators like Maupialug, proved wayfinding's enduring power, reconnecting Pacific peoples with their heritage across thousands of miles. You're picturing it now, a sleek canoe with a GPS tucked away, just in case, but the crew's eyes fixed on the stars. Like yours? You're learning how modern navigators merge old and new. They still memorize the star compass, naming its 32 houses, but might check a digital map during storms. You try blending the two in your mind, steering by Sirius's arc while imagining a tablet glowing with coordinates. It's strange, like mixing a chant with a podcast, but it works. The stars hold true, even with tech as backup. You mutter, if I mix up stars and satellites, I'm not a navigator. I'm a very confused influencer. The joke's light, but it keeps you grounded in this fusion of worlds. Here's a quirky tidbit: some modern crews use smartphone apps to log star positions. But during training, they're banned to force reliance on memory. You picture yourself sneaking a peek at an app, only to have a master navigator confiscate it with a smirk. Historians still argue whether this tech integration dilutes the art or strengthens it. Some say it's practical, preserving skills in a digital age. Others worry it erodes the pure instinct of wayfinding. You're not sure, but you like the balance. The stars above and a screen below, both pointing west. You shift, the rock digging into your back, and gaze at the Pleiades, low and tight. You're imagining teaching the apprentice this hybrid way, showing them how to feel swells but also read a weather app. The revival's alive. You've heard of young Hawaiians sailing the Hokulea today, chanting the same songs you've learned. You're starting to see the stars as timeless, guiding canoes in 500 CE, and now, their light unchanged. The Polynesians' legacy thrives, not frozen but evolving, like a tree growing new branches. The air's cooler now, carrying a tang of salt and ash. You're picturing a modern voyage, solar panels on the canoe's platform, but the crew still offering pedals to Tangaroa, like you did in the ritual. You think of Maupialug, whose 1976 voyage inspired this rebirth. His faith in the stars bridging centuries. You're trying to channel that vision, blending your chants with the hum of tech. You joke, if I sail with GPS, I'm not traditional, I'm the hipster of navigators. The quip's silly, but it hides your awe at this living art. You lean back, the stone steady, and try a new trick, picturing the star compass while imagining a digital overlay, like a heads-up display. It's clunky, but you name the houses northeast, east, southeast, tying them to stars and coordinates. The Polynesians didn't need tech, their minds sharp enough. But you're learning to respect both paths, the old wisdom and new tools. You're nowhere near a master, but you're starting to feel the pulse of this revival. Its roots deep, its reach wide. The stars twinkle, and you spot the Southern Cross, sharp and low. You're linking it to a modern sail, imagining an island south, tracked by stars and satellites. The canoe waits, its hulls ready for new voyages. You practice a chant, blending old words with a nod to tech. Hokulea rises. West we go. Stars and screens. Paths to know. It's rough, but it binds past and present. You're learning to carry the stars forward, in any age. You yawn, the night's hum wrapping you softly. The revival's a bridge, tying you to ancient navigators and tomorrow's sailors. You're a part of this story. Old stars meeting new skies. The waves whisper, the fire crackles, and you settle in. Ready for the next step, your heart alight with timeless light. You're still perched on that rocky outcrop, the Pacific's waves whispering below as the island hums with life behind you. The canoe waits, its hulls gleaming under moonlight, and the stars, Hokulea, Sirius. Canopus seemed to nod at the revival you've been pondering. Now, though, you're turning inward, reflecting on the courage of those ancient navigators who trusted these stars to cross an ocean vast enough to swallow them whole. You're tracing your fingers through the sand, the grains cool and gritty, feeling the weight of their bravery under the same sky. The air carries a faint whiff of charcoal and sea, and you're sinking into a quiet awe, letting the stars spark your thoughts. You're imagining yourself as one of those early sailors, setting out around 200 CE from the Marquesas, your canoe loaded with hope and little else. The Polynesians' voyages, like the 3,000-mile trek to Hawaii, demanded guts launching into the unknown with only stars and stories to guide them. That's the mainstream fact their courage, rooted in skill and faith, settled the Pacific's farthest islands, creating a legacy that still shines. You're picturing it now, your heart racing as you steer by Hokulea, the horizon empty, your crew's eyes on you, trusting you to find land. You're reflecting on what that took, not just knowledge, but a stubborn belief in the stars' promise. You recall the storm you faced, how panic clawed at you when clouds hid the sky. They faced worse. Weeks of doubt, yet kept sailing. You're sitting still, sand under your nails, and wondering if you'd have that grit. You mutter, "If I'd been them, I'd probably hug the shore and call it a day." The joke's soft, but it hides your respect, the kind that makes your chest tight. You're starting to see the stars as they did less a map, more a vow. Here's a quirky tidbit: some navigators wore amulets carved with star shapes, believing they carried the sky's protection. You imagine slipping one around your neck, a tiny Hokulea etched in bone, its weight a reminder to stay brave. Historians still argue whether these amulets were common or a personal quirk, maybe from Tahitian sailors. Some say they were talismans for courage. Others think they were just keepsakes. You're not sure, but you like the idea, your fingers brushing an imaginary pendant, the stars above feeling closer. You shift, the rock's edge digging into your thigh, and gaze at the Pleiades. Low and tight, you're thinking of the crew's stories, how they shared tales of ancestors who sailed blind, their faith in Sirius or Canopus unshaken. That courage wasn't reckless, it was built on the chance. Rituals and lessons you've learned. You're starting to grasp why they risked it. The stars weren't just directions. They were home, tying every island together. The Polynesians lived this, their bravery a fire that lit the Pacific, and you're feeling its warmth now. The air's cooler, carrying a tang of salt and damp earth. You're picturing Mau Piailug, whose 1976 Hokulea voyage echoed that ancient courage, sailing without modern tools to prove it could be done. You're trying to channel that, letting the Southern Cross anchor your thoughts. You joke, "If I had their guts, I'd sail to the moon, then panic about parking." The quip's silly, but it masks your growing resolve to honor their spirit, to carry their spark in your own small way. You lean back, the stone steady, and try a new reflection, closing your eyes to feel the stars' presence, like the navigators who heard them in storms. It's subtle, but you sense Hokulea's arc in your mind, its light a quiet strength. You're learning to admire, not just mimic, seeing their courage as a gift passed down through every chant you've sung. You're nowhere near their fearlessness, but you're starting to feel it, a flicker of their fire in your chest, urging you to keep going. The stars twinkle, and you spot Sirius, blazing west. You're linking it to their voyages, imagining islands found under its gaze. The canoe waits, its hulls ready for your next sail. You practice a chant, soft and slow. Hokulea rises. Brave we steer. Stars hold fast. Banish fear. It's rough, but it binds you to them. Their courage a star you'll follow. You're learning to carry their heart, to let it guide you as surely as the sky. You yawn, the night's hum wrapping you gently. The navigator's courage is a beacon, and you're basking in its glow, tied to their story under these eternal stars. The waves sigh, the island breathes, and you settle in. Ready for the next thought? Your soul alight with their fearless light. You're still on that rocky outcrop, the Pacific's waves murmuring below as the island's heartbeat pulses through the sand. The courage of those ancient navigators still warms your thoughts, their starlit bravery a quiet fire. But now you're digging deeper, exploring how the stars shaped Polynesian identity and exploration. You're leaning back, the stone smooth against your spine, tracing constellations Hokulea. Sirius, the Southern Cross with eyes that feel older. Wiser, the air soft, laced with salt and a distant hint of coconut, and you're unraveling how the sky wove itself into the soul of a people, guiding their wanderlust across an ocean vast as time. You're reflecting on the Polynesians' world, where stars weren't just tools but kin, part of their story. Around 400 CE, their migrations from Fiji to the far reaches of Rapa Nui and Hawaii built a cultural web, with constellations as shared symbols across islands. That's the mainstream fact: the stars didn't just guide their canoes, they defined their identity, tying scattered communities into a single Pacific nation through shared myths and voyages. You're picturing it now, a village elder pointing to the Pleiades, telling kids they're descendants of star-born heroes, your own heart stirring at the thought. You're seeing the stars as more than navigation. They're the root of exploration itself. The Polynesians' urge to sail to find new horizons came from a belief that the stars called them, each constellation a challenge to discover. You recall the Maui myths, how his stars sparked your own curiosity, and imagine a young sailor gazing at Canopus, dreaming of lands beyond the waves. It's humbling, and you mutter, "If I had their wanderlust, I'd probably sail off the map, then ask for directions." The joke's soft, but it hides your awe at their restless spirit, forever chasing the sky's light. Here's a quirky tidbit: some Polynesian songs described stars as canoes of the gods, sailing the heavens to inspire human voyages. You hum a made-up tune, picturing Sirius as a divine hull cutting through the night, and grin at the poetry of it. Historians still argue whether these songs were literal beliefs or metaphors for exploration. Some say they fueled a cultural drive to sail. Others think they were just poetic flourishes. You're not sure, but you love the image. Your voice whispering a song about Hokulea's celestial journey. The stars above nodding along. You shift, the rock's edge biting your hip. And think of the rituals you joined, how they tied the stars to identity. The dances, the offerings to Tangaroa, weren't just for safe passage, they were claims of belonging. Saying, "We are the people of the stars." You're starting to feel it. How the Southern Cross isn't just a guide but a badge of heritage, linking you to every islander who sailed. The Polynesians wove this into their lives. Their exploration a hymn to the sky, and you're humming along, caught in its melody. The air's cooler now, carrying a faint whiff of seaweed. You're picturing Mao Piailug, whose 1976 Hokulea voyage wasn't just a trip, but a reclaiming of identity, showing the world Polynesians were explorers by blood. You're trying to channel that pride, seeing the stars as your own roots. Even if you're just a visitor to this story, you joke, "If I claim the stars, I'm not an islander. I'm the galaxy's adopted kid." The quip's light, but it masks your longing to belong to this celestial tribe. You lean forward, sand dusting your palms, and try a new reflection, closing your eyes to feel the stars as family, like the Polynesians did. It's subtle, but you sense Sirius's pulse, a cousin calling you west. You're learning to see exploration as identity, each voyage a thread in a cultural tapestry. You're nowhere near their depth, but you're starting to grasp it, your mind stretching to hold the stars' role in their soul. The stars twinkle, and you spot Canopus, low and sharp. You're linking it to their voyages, imagining islands born under its gaze, each one a piece of their story. The canoe waits, its hulls ready to carry this identity forward. You practice a chant, slow and sure stars our kin, seas our home. West we sail, never alone. It's rough, but it binds you to their spirit, their sky-born heart. You're learning to carry their identity, to let it shape your own path. You yawn, the night's hum wrapping you softly. The stars are more than guides, they're the soul of a people, and you're honored to share their light. You're part of this story, tied to their wanderlust under these eternal skies. The waves sigh, the island breathes, and you settle in, ready for the final step, your heart full of celestial roots. You're still on the island, the Pacific's waves whispering against the shore as the night deepens, wrapping you in its quiet embrace. The canoe rests nearby, its hulls etched with the journey's story, and the stars Hokulea, Sirius. The Pleiades shine like old friends, their light a thread through every lesson you've learned. You're sitting cross-legged on the sand, the grains cool and soft, reflecting on how these celestial guides shaped a people's soul. Now, though, you're letting go, drifting towards sleep as the stars above whisper tales of ancient voyages, their glow a gentle lullaby. The air's warm, scented with salt and distant blooms, and you're sinking into a calm that feels like coming home. You're gazing at the sky, replaying the journey in your mind. Around 1000 BCE, Polynesian navigators began their odyssey across the Pacific, their star-driven voyages knitting islands into a vast cultural tapestry. That's the mainstream fact. Their wayfinding, honed over millennia, wasn't just survival, it was a testament to human spirit, carried by constellations like Canopus and the Southern Cross. You're feeling it now, the weight of their legacy, as you trace Sirius's arc, its light steady, like a heartbeat you've learned to trust. You're letting the stars guide your thoughts, each one a memory. Hokulea reminds you of the elder's lessons, his gruff voice naming the compass's houses. The Pleiades recall the myths of Maui, sparking your courage through storms. You're picturing the crew's laughter, their stories binding you under the same sky. It's overwhelming, but peaceful, like a puzzle finally complete. You mutter, "If I dream of stars, I'm not sleeping, I'm still sailing." The joke's faint, but it softens the night, your voice blending with the waves' sigh. Here's a quirky tidbit: some Polynesians believed stars sang to sailors, their light humming a melody only the heart could hear. You tilt your head, half expecting a cosmic tune, and smile, imagining a faint chime from Canopus. Historians still argue whether this was metaphor or mysticism, perhaps a Samoan belief tied to navigation's trance. Some say it was poetic, others think it was a way to stay alert. You're not sure, but you hum softly, letting the stars' imagined song lull you, your eyelids growing heavy. You shift, sand dusting your legs, and feel the island's pulse, its rhythm synced with the sea. You're thinking of Maupilug, whose 1976 Hokulea voyage carried these stars into the modern world, a bridge from past to present. You're learning to let go, to trust the sky's eternal watch, just as they did. The canoe's silhouette fades, the stars blur, and you're drifting, not fighting the tide but flowing with it. You're a part of this story, a fleeting guest under their light, and that's enough. The air's softer now, a gentle caress of salt and night. You're picturing a final voyage, not to an island but to dreams. The stars your guide. You chant, barely a whisper. Stars above, dreams below. West we drift. Soft we go. It's simple, a thread to sleep, tying you to the navigator's heart. You're learning to rest, to let the sky cradle you. Its light a promise of tomorrow's paths. The stars twinkle, faint and far, and you spot the Southern Cross, low, a quiet anchor. You're linking it to peace, imagining a shore beyond the sea, waiting in your dreams. The waves hum, the island breathes, and you're slipping. The knight's arms wide. You're nowhere near their mastery, but you've touched their world, carried their stars in your soul. You're sinking deeper now. The sand a soft cradle, the waves a distant lullaby. The stars fade, not gone, but resting. Their light tucked in your heart. You're safe, wrapped in the night's gentle hum. The ocean's breath slow and warm. Every swell, every twinkle, carries you closer to dreams, where islands bloom and canoes glide under endless skies. There's no rush, no fear, only peace. The stars whisper, fading to a sigh. Let your thoughts drift, soft as petals on the sea, and rest, knowing the sky will watch over you. Sleep now, sweet and deep. The Pacific's arms your home.